Hi, welcome to our Leaders United Zoom and Learn. We are here with Dr. Tracey Miller from the school district. We've all been, I know the school district has been really busy planning and preparing to get everybody back to school. I know Tracey has been working around the clock all summer long. We're so grateful to have her here. The United Way has a long-standing partnership with the school district. Our three priority areas are health, financial stability, and education. So with that, we always make sure we do have a great relationship with the school district. We have just launched our Tools for Success program in partnership with them, putting school supplies into the classroom of every elementary school here in Martin County. So we're happy to be able to do that for them. We're also helping out with supplies in the Title I middle school. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the stress on parents going back to school this year. And free up a little bit more resources. But I am here with Tracey as she discusses getting back to school this year, what it's going to look like. I got a lot of questions from everybody ahead of this call, so hopefully Tracey will address them for us. Tracey Miller is a graduate of Martin County High School. She is a lifelong educator, having worked in the Martin County District since 1992. She has served as a classroom teacher, assistant principal, Director of Elementary Programs and School Improvement, and is currently the Martin County School District Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Miller earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Education from the University of Florida, master's and specialist degrees from Florida Atlantic University, and became a Doctor of Education in 2009 upon the completion of the doctoral program at Florida Atlantic University. She lives in Martin County with her husband, Todd, and her daughter, Tiffany, who is entering Martin County High School this year as a freshman. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Take it away, Tracey.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara, and thank you to the United Way for hosting this event today. We are grateful for the relationship that we share with the United Way and grateful for all of the support that we receive. And just happy to have this opportunity to share what's been happening in the Martin County School District and what's happening as we prepare to open schools. So our agenda for lunchtime today is to share the factors that relate to opening, why our schools are opening, to share a little bit about the learning opportunities that are available here in the Martin County School District, the health protocols with some quarantine and isolation information, and some time to be sure that we've addressed all the questions that were received prior by the United Way. So the Education Commissioner, Richard Corcoran, he issued an emergency order that requires schools to open for 5 days a week. In other words, for full opening for all the students who wish to attend school in person. And this opening is subject to the advice and orders of the Florida Department of Health, our local Department of Health, the executive order from the commissioner, and any subsequent executive orders. And so you may have heard that some districts to the south of us are not opening in person, that they are only having a remote opening. And that's because they have received advice not to open, and they have remained in phase 1 of the governor's order and of the governor's shutdown for the state of Florida, where Martin County has been moved quite a while ago to phase 2, and we remain there. So we're in regular contact with the local Department of Health, and we seek their advice and guidance as our healthcare professionals. We have not received an order to close schools, and so the adopted Martin County School District calendar will be followed. Orientation takes place on Monday for our 6th and 9th graders, and schools will open for all students on Tuesday. The only exception is for River Bend, which supports the students at Sandy Pines, which is the residential treatment center here in Martin County. So how did we develop our plan? As you can imagine, there's a great deal that goes into it, lots to consider. We had input from many people. We have 5 task force teams hard at work on this. We have a teacher team, non-instructional team, which includes folks such as our bus drivers, our custodians, food service workers. We have a parent task force, a healthcare professional task force, and newest is our assessment team looking at how to prepare for assessments. Of course, safety and the continuity of instruction is important to us. We looked at how we can provide options for our Martin County families, how we can implement the CDC and others' recommendations to the greatest extent possible. How do we provide continuity to our students and our staff? And how can we continue to provide instruction if classrooms or schools are forced to close? And I will make this presentation available to Tara so she can post for everyone. And there is a link here where you can see Florida's entire plan that was submitted and approved by the Department of Education. So back in July, the options for school attendance in the fall were approved. And you can see the two options, traditional in school and K-12 remote learning, are the two options that we have, in addition to options that parents always have for school attendance. And so this K-12 remote learning is what is new for back to school in 2020. And so those options, give you a little bit of detail about those. The traditional option, and we know nothing really is traditional or as we knew it prior to COVID-19. There are modifications and some changes that are made in all aspects of our life, and that's nothing, there's nothing different for school. We are also making those modifications in our schools. So students attend school in person and follow their regular schedule if they're following the traditional model. We will have social distancing to the greatest extent possible, and we know that social distancing is dependent upon the size of the space and the number of people inside that space. We have modified traffic patterns in the hallways for the changing of classes. Masks are required for staff, students, and for visitors. We have enhanced cleaning protocols. We have the availability of hand sanitizer and cleaning products for adult use. We're limiting to some degree the sharing of materials and paper products. And we are ensuring, though, that we have the ability for students who attend in person to communicate with those students who are choosing option 2, and the availability for those students who are learning in school to temporarily learn from home if they're not feeling well or if they're required to quarantine or isolate. District loan laptop devices are available for each student, and they're to be brought to school and taken home each day. This is all to ensure the continuity of instruction to make sure that we can educate our students for success. Option 2 is the availability for students to attend school from home and follow their regular schedule in what we're calling remote learning from home. Students receive the same instruction at home as their in-school peers, and we call this synchronous instruction. Students receive direct instruction from their classroom teachers. They access class instruction through live stream video, Zoom, much like we have happening here, and students maintain enrollment in their own school. As always, attendance is taken each period. Students can easily transition back to traditional in-person school without having to change schedules or teachers. Students are provided a device for their at-home learning, and our services that include mental health counseling and interventions are made available for students regardless of the option that they choose. Of course, if students are young and they're learning from home, parents should be sure to provide adult supervision and support. One of the questions we get asked the most is why we don't have some teachers teaching remotely only and some teachers teaching in person only. And the reason is a couple reasons, and I'm sharing those in an example here. So if we have 90 students in a 3rd grade at a particular school, that would require us to hire 5 3rd grade teachers. 18 students would be on each teacher's class roster. We know that we have approximately 38% of our students requesting to learn from home. So of those 90 students, that would be 34 students learning from home, 56 coming in person. So in the model we've proposed and have in place and approved by the Department of Education, all teachers will provide synchronous instruction both to the students in person and those learning at home. So for each of those 5 teachers, that would be 11 to 12 students in person and 5 to 6 remote learning at home. Having just 11 or 12 students in a classroom allows social distancing to a much greater degree than if we had 18 students and 18 desks in the classroom and occupied at the same time. So it allows for a greater ability for us to social distance. If teachers are teaching remotely only and others are teaching in person only, that would require us to have 3 teachers in person and 2 working remotely. The remote teacher would have 34 students, and that would be divided among the 2 teachers, 17 per class. In person, however, would have 56 students to divide among 3 teachers, giving some of them 18 and some 19, which exceeds the state laws for class size limits. So if we go to some teachers teaching remotely and some teaching in person only, we have an issue with class size. We certainly can't afford to hire another teacher because we've gone over the class size limit for those 1 or 2 students who request to come in person. And when a student returns from remote learning and wants to come in person, we are public schools. All students can enroll in our schools who are living in our community, and they have a right to attend school in person if they choose. So when they want to come from remote to in person, we don't have a classroom for them because their teacher is remote teaching only and not teaching in the classroom. You can see that the classrooms are already full in person with 18 to 19. In fact, they're overcrowded at this point. And students would also have to change from the teacher they've been working with for days or weeks or even months and change classes to another teacher. Likewise, when a student in person doesn't feel well, they may have to be sent home for quarantine for 14 or even up to 24 days per the recommendations from the health department. And in that case, if we don't have a teacher to be able to provide remote learning because they were signed up for the in-person learning, we would have a case where a student would go 24 days potentially without education. And so that is something that we are greatly trying to avoid to make sure that we can have continuity of instruction for our students so that we can deliver the best education possible. So people ask all the time how many students have requested to learn from home. And so overall in the district, that's 38% of our students. And you can see that our second language learners, that's with the ELL, English language learners, a much higher percent, 45% of them have requested remote learning from home. And our Title I families, 43% of them have requested to remote learn from home. Those are our students who receive free or reduced price meals. Students who are ESE or receive special education services, to a slightly higher degree, have requested to learn from home. And by grade, you can see that the greatest percent of students are middle school students who have requested to learn from home, with 40, 42, and 45% of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders requesting to learn from home at this point. One of the questions we received talked about the loss of learning. So when schools were mandated to close by the governor, and that happened on March 13th in the spring, students had a break in their instruction and school didn't quite look like it was meant to for the last 9 weeks. And so there's something called the COVID achievement gap that we believe has happened, where students didn't receive all of the instruction that they might have received if they had been in traditional settings. And so we are required to and will implement assessments and progress monitoring so that we can identify student needs. Teachers will then respond to those student needs, and we have additional supports that have been provided through the CARES federal funding. Those include graduation coaches so that we can ensure an on-time graduation for our high school students, special education staff to mitigate any needs that might have occurred because the students weren't in school in traditional setting in the spring. We know that our middle school students often struggle in mathematics, and so we have mathematics remediation planned. And for students taking the SAT, ACT, and other assessments, we have preparation support for them. Additionally, teacher resources have been made available and given to our classroom teachers to support their ability to close these gaps for our students. So staffing is another question that we receive quite often, and with school opening in just a few days, staffing is something that we have at the forefront right now. As all of us do, whether we are working in the education system, whether we are working in any other arena in our community and across the nation, we know that COVID-19 has taken its toll both physically, emotionally, mentally on people as a community, as individuals, as parents, and as workers. And we understand that some people may, for various reasons, need to resign, take an early retirement, or take a leave for which they're entitled. And so certainly the district is no different. We are facing those needs of our employees right now and responding to them. So we are providing additional training for substitutes and providing professional development to support their ability to teach in a remote and in an in-person environment. The substitutes have been recruited and called to verify their ability for employment. And if anyone is interested in becoming a substitute in our district, we would love to have you, and you can contact our Human Resources Department if you're interested in becoming a substitute teacher or if you're interested in teaching. Additionally, we have custodial openings. We have additional positions to help with the increased cleaning needs that we anticipate and have planned for cleaning and sanitizing in all of our buildings. So for health information, we have our top 10 risk mitigation strategies. And the most important one is to stay home when you're sick. And this just isn't for schools. This is for everyone as a community to be responsible to ourselves and to others in the community to help mitigate the risk of COVID-19. So stay home when you're sick. The next most important is to have proper hand hygiene. That includes washing hands very often and sanitizing. I'm going to share some of the others as we go through some of the health protocols that we have in place. You can see here that we have plans for traditional in-person learning when we have a greater spread of COVID-19 and when we have limited or no spread. And what we're letting everyone know is always a good practice. If you're sick or have a fever, you must stay home. So to provide additional protection, we have personal protective equipment. We call it PPE, and you've seen it all around town, whether you're in the stores or in the community, you have seen people utilizing their masks. Masks are provided and required for all staff, students, and we also ask that any visitors on campus be wearing their masks at all times. So from the time students get on the bus and when they're in the building, masks are required. To date, we have spent $1.4 million on personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies, with a projected additional $2.4 million to be spent by December. So we are making a great investment in safety and personal protective equipment. Most often we're asked about masks, and we have here a link that probably answers every question you've ever thought of about masks. Surgical masks will be made available to those who don't have them. We've been wearing them in Martin County now for quite a while, so many people have their own, and they have found ones that they like, that are pretty comfortable, ones that are cuter than others, and ones that are share their favorite sports team and such. And so all of those are acceptable as long as they meet the student code of conduct requirements. In other words, they don't have any offensive colors, images, or words or political messages. They need to be worn properly in order to work, and that's covering the nose and the mouth at all times except when eating and drinking. The neck gaiters, people know them as buffs, those are allowable as long as they're covering the nose and mouth only and not pulled up over the rest of the face. Face shields are allowed, but they're not considered a mask or face covering. They're permitted when they're worn in conjunction with a mask, and that's just because the face shield does not offer as much protection as a mask. So they are permissible, but a mask should also be used in addition. So just an example of some of the supplies. Cleaning and disinfecting will take place throughout the buildings and the school buses. Additional supplies such as these are available for teachers who would like to use them in the classrooms, and students may certainly bring their own supplies for personal use, such as hand sanitizer and wipes. Martin County School District quarantine protocol. There's a difference between quarantine and isolation. Quarantine keeps someone who might have been exposed to the virus away from others. So in other words, quarantine is for contacts. If you've been in contact with someone who has been positive with coronavirus. Isolation is for someone who has tested positive and has symptoms of coronavirus, and it separates those people away from others so that we don't spread the infection. And so this is information from the health department about what counts as a close contact. And if you've been in contact, you need to stay home for 14 days after your last contact with a person who is positive, and watch for signs of coronavirus such as 100.4 degree temperature or higher, a cough, shortness of breath, or other known symptoms. And if possible, stay away from others, especially those who are at higher risk for getting very sick from the virus. Virus spread and contact tracing. This is information that has been widely shared across the district, across the county, the state, the nation, just about the spread of the virus. And we are obviously trying to do everything we can to mitigate the spread and to keep people from getting sick. We do have a great partnership with the Cleveland Clinic, and they are expediting testing for staff. And we're in discussions now, and they're working very hard to have some procedures in place for additional pediatric testing. So that is in discussion at the moment. So as of July, we have criteria should the need arise for the transition to remote learning. So if there are students who are sick, if we have students who are testing positive or staff, then we would follow this matrix to decide which classes would close. And so parents should expect to be notified if their child's classroom would need to close. So for example, if a student tested positive in a third grade class, that class would be sent home to quarantine for 14 days. But because of our plan, that class could move in its entirety to remote learning. So students wouldn't miss any of their instruction. The teacher and the students would be able to learn from home in a full remote environment until they are able to come back to school after the period where the virus could have manifested itself and made people sick or positive with COVID-19. And so the health department gives us our guidance around stopping the spread of the disease, and we follow the information and the guidance that they give to us along with other health professionals, and including the governor, the Surgeon General, and the State Department of Health. So a school would close in the event of a school-wide outbreak of COVID-19 or a community-wide outbreak with cases linked to the school. And the matrix that we shared is the one that's in place right now. And of course, with everything, as we learn more, things could change. So we're constantly in discussions with the health department, and we're constantly assessing the situation and making modifications as needed. Is possible schools can be closed for a period of time indicated in collaboration with local health officials who have that expertise to determine the necessary length of transition and how many classes or schools would need to close. And by close, I mean return to remote learning, not close as in what happened in March where students didn't go to school for a period of time. A school closure would indicate a transition to remote learning. So while the school is in transition, that continuity of learning would continue. Remote learning would be open until students in the traditional model are able to return in person. And my final message really is that as a community, we are all in this together. This is a worldwide pandemic. None of us asked for the situation that we're in. We're all pulling together to do everything we can to support each other and to support our children. And the Martin County School District is responding to the need to educate the students in our community in the very safest environment possible. And all of us as parents, as educators, as community partners, as neighbors, as students, we must do our part with education to be able to educate our students and keep our community members, including our kids, well throughout this pandemic. So I thank you all for joining us. I thank you for your support of the Martin County School District. I thank you to Tara and to Carol at the United Way and everyone who has been part of today's Lunch and Learn. Appreciate the opportunity to share all that's been going on in the Martin County School District. And we look forward to being able to see our students back in our school buildings, whether they're back in person or learning remotely from home. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you so much, Tracey. It's been a pleasure having you. I received a ton of questions ahead of this meeting, and I had sent them all to you ahead of time to give you the opportunity if you needed to look them up and figure out research a little bit further and find the answers. And all of those questions seem to have been answered in your presentation. So I really appreciate that. My one question that came up while you were speaking was imagining all of these kids in the classroom with their devices and all of those cords. So charge them at home before you come to school.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then my other last question, I know some like high school students, I've heard through the grapevine, a lot of seniors going in, like looking for ACT and SAT testing, and I know some of those tests were canceled. Is there availability? Does the district have any comment on any of that?
Sure. So our district is unique. Many districts completely canceled summer ACT testing, and Martin County did respond by opening a testing center at Martin County High School, so students were able to test for that summer assessment. We also had end of course exam assessments for those that are required and students who wanted to take them this summer so that they wouldn't have to take them in the fall. Those were all available and made in person, so students did come in to our school buildings this summer to be able to take those assessments. So we are looking forward to being able to offer SAT testing coming up soon. And so parents can check the website and our Facebook page, and that would be martinschools.org, and our Facebook page to get those testing locations and dates.
I've been watching the Facebook page, and you guys have been sharing such a wealth of information with your Q&As, and a lot of the information that we've discussed today has shown up on the district's Q&A on their Facebook page. So it's a great resource if you're not following or liking the district Facebook page. It's a great resource for information. Again, thank you so much, Tracey. I really appreciate the time that you took. I wish the teachers, everyone in the district, all of the students, all of the best of luck for a safe, healthy school year. And thanks again.
Thank you so much. Good.
I'm trying to stop the recording. I'm trying to stop the